Respect the Lord's anointed, despite their flaws. Main scripture. Numbers chapter 12, verses 7 to 8. But this is not true of my servant Moses. He is faithful in all my house. With him I speak face to face, clearly and not in riddles. He sees the form of the Lord. Why then were you not afraid to speak against my servant Moses? What occurs when one opposes the Lord's servant? And how should we respond upon witnessing their shortcomings? The Bible provides insights into these queries through its narratives. The role of the prophets. The Israelites were a chosen nation. They established the covenant with God, which was inscribed on 2 tablets. These 2 tablets were stored in the ark, which was subsequently placed in the sanctuary, symbolic of the church. Then, God anointed the priests, entrusting them with the responsibility of conveying His word. This marked the commencement of their life centered around the church. Moses. In Numbers chapter 12, Aaron and Miriam criticized Moses for his marriage to a Cushite woman. Despite the validity of their criticism, as the Israelites were forbidden from marrying Gentiles, God reprimanded Aaron and Miriam for challenging Moses. Moses was a prophet and God's chosen servant. The story of Aaron and Miriam underlines that criticizing a prophet is not taken lightly by God, regardless of the prophet's perceived flaws. Noah. Indeed, Abraham was also referred to as a prophet. Genesis chapter 20, verse 7. Similarly, Noah was a prophet and served as a preacher of righteousness. 2 Peter chapter 2, verse 5. Tasked with delivering his warnings of impending judgment. Genesis chapter 7, verse 1. Even Noah, despite his prophetic role, had moments of flaws when he revealed his nakedness to his sons after drinking too much. Genesis chapter 9, verses 20 to 21. The reactions of his 3 sons to this incident varied. Shem and Japheth, out of respect, entered Noah's tent backwards to cover him without gazing upon his nakedness. Genesis chapter 9, verse 23. On the other hand, Ham saw his father's naked state and reported to his brothers. Genesis chapter 9, verse 22. The consequences of their respective actions were profound. Shem and Japheth received blessings while Ham faced a curse. Genesis chapter 9, verses 25 to 27. Abraham. Abraham too was not without fault. When he relocated to a foreign territory, he feared for his life due to Sarah's beauty and falsely claimed she was his sister. Genesis chapter 20, verses 1 to 2. Consequently, Abimelech, king of Gerar, took Sarah for himself. While it might appear that the blame rested with Abraham for his deception, God intervened. He appeared to Abimelech in a dream, instructing him to return Sarah to Abraham. Apostle Paul. When Apostle Paul was summoned before the Sanhedrin, the high priest Ananias commanded that Paul be struck on the mouth. Acts chapter 23, verse 2. Paul rebuked the high priest, exclaiming, "God will strike you, you whitewashed wall." Acts chapter 23, verse 3. However, upon realizing that the one who had ordered the strike was the high priest, Paul apologized by saying, "I did not realize that he was the high priest. For it is written, 'Do not speak evil about the ruler of your people.'" Acts chapter 23, verse 5. David did not commit the sin of harming the Lord's anointed. For decades, he was relentlessly pursued by Saul, constantly living under the shadow of danger due to Saul's repeated efforts to end his life. Given a prime opportunity for revenge, David's men urged him to strike Saul down. 1 Samuel chapter 24, verse 4. Yet, David insisted, The Lord forbid that I should do such a thing to my master, the Lord's anointed, or lift my hand against him, for he is the anointed of the Lord. 1 Samuel chapter 24, verse 6. While his men insisted on their own will, David recalled and followed God's command. He spared the life of Saul. 1 Samuel chapter 24, verse 10. David understood that one's life is in God's hands, not his own. Isaiah chapter 33, verse 22. For the Lord is our judge, the Lord is our lawgiver, the Lord is our king. It is he who will save us. When Saul recognized that David has chosen to spare his life, he blessed David, saying, "May the Lord reward you well for the way you treated me today." 1 Samuel chapter 24, verse 19. God tests on our obedience. God tests and humbles us in this manner. Deuteronomy chapter 8, verse 2. The moment David had the chance to end Saul's life was a test from God, examining whether he would recall and uphold his command. Psalm chapter 26, verse 2. Test me, O Lord, and try me. Examine my heart and my mind. Conclusion. The Bible teaches that opposing or judging the Lord's anointed is a grievous sin. Even upon witnessing their flaws, we must not criticize them.